This is a production of PBS Charlotte.
The following episode of Charlotte Cooks is brought to you by Central Piedmont Community College and viewers like you. Thank you.
Hi there, and welcome to today's edition of Charlotte Cooks. I'm Chef Pamela Roberts, and I'm very glad you're here with me today. We are going to be making a comfort dish today. It is braised lamb shanks. They're wonderful. Lamb is one of those meats that if you buy a lamb shank, it can be relatively economical. And lamb shanks, look at this. These are gorgeous. These are like big old hunks of meat. These are really wonderful. Actually, two people can share one of these if you wanted to, but one really hungry person could also eat an entire one all by themselves. The thing about a lamb shank is when you look at it, you're going to notice it's part of the lamb leg. It's down the lower part of the leg. You see you got the bone in here, and you've got these lovely, lovely, lovely morsels of meat. But also you're going to notice there's all this silver skin on here, and normally when we're cooking foods that have silver skin on them, we peel that off. We try to take that off because it's really tough. But in the case of a lamb shank, we're going to put this in a braising liquid. We're going to dredge them in flour, we're going to brown them, we're going to put them in a pan, we're going to cover them half to 2/3 of the way with a little bit of wine, a little bit of stock, and then we're going to cover them and put them in the oven, and these things are going to roast for a couple of hours. If you can let them roast for 2.5, almost 3 hours, number one, your house will smell amazing. But then at the end of it, these things will be so wonderfully fork tender, and I'll show you exactly what I mean by fork tender here at the end. So in order to get started, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on my pan and get it hot. I'm going to grab a pan of plain old everyday flour. All right, now here's the thing about salting meat. Some people will salt their meat and let it sit. Some people will salt their meat immediately before cooking, and some people will salt their meat after they cook. Now, the thing about salting the meat immediately before you're cooking, it's a good idea. If you're going to let it sit for like 15 or 20 minutes, or sometimes people say let your meat come up to room temperature before you cook it, you don't necessarily have to do that. That's kind of like a fallacy, something people do. But well, let's get to the science principle here. When you put salt on the surface of something, the inside of the cell that the salt is sitting on is going to release the water, it's going to dissolve the salt, and then it's going to pull the salt back into the cell. And so what you want to do, if you're going to salt your meat, you want to do it either just before you cook or long enough where it's going to be able to sit for an hour, hour and a half, so that that osmosis activity can take place. Because then what you're looking for primarily is that your meat is not going to be soaking wet and covered with liquid. Because if it's soaking wet and covered with liquid, you're not going to get a good browning on it. So you're going to dust these with a little bit of salt and pepper just before you flour them. And we're flouring the shanks for two reasons. Number one, we want to get them nice and golden brown, and also the flour is going to help to contribute to the thickening of our sauce, okay? So I think I'll cook you. You look nice and big. Now my pan is small, and I've got these giant, giant lamb shanks here, and so I'm going to cook these in stages. I'm going to cook 2 at a time. Get your pan nice and hot. Dredge them all in flour, and the flour is going to turn brown, and like I said, it's going to be part of the thickener that you have in your final sauce. In the end, we'll add a little bit more of a beurre manie, which is a kneaded butter. I'll show you what that is towards the end, so that we make sure that we get our sauce thickened just the way we want it. So you want to make sure that you get every surface, including the ends of the bones, covered with the flour. Add a little bit of oil to the bottom of a pan. We're not deep frying, we're just trying to make it not stick. I'm going to put these in the pan, the flattest side down first. You're going to just put them in here, and you're going to get them nice and golden brown. You're going to have to do this in some stages, because unless you have like a giant pan at home, you probably have to do these in stages. Or if you're just going to cook 2, that's fine. You can use a roasting pan if you like. I'm going to use just a small little stainless steel pan here, just because that's what I have on hand. I'm going to put these off to the back while I brown these off. Okay, so we've got our lamb shanks in the pan. We've got them all nice and brown. We're going to take them, we're going to put them in a nice deep pan that we can roast them in, okay? Because we want to cover them, we're going to put some vegetables and things in there. While your pan is hot, you're going to take a bit of red wine and deglaze it with red wine. Let that red wine reduce a little bit. And the reason you use red wine is because it's nice and compatible with lamb. And the other thing about it is it's going to take all of that wonderful browned flavor that was on the bottom of the pan from the meat browning. It's going to put that now into our sauce. So all I'm going to do is just pour this in there. And that's just one of the sauces that we're going to use. And now I'm going to add some of my flavoring elements. And I'm going to use some celery. I'm going to use some carrots and some onions. And basically this is just a simple mirepoix. It adds a good amount of flavor. And you have to remember that when we are doing this, this is going to be braising for a good long time, 2 to 3 hours. So you don't want to cut your vegetables really small and really tiny. You're going to use carrots, onions, and celery. I've got some celery in there. Onion, I'm just going to chop it up, cut the root end off, cut it up in half, and just basically give it some chops. Because once again, this is all going to come down into a lovely gout melange of flavor at the very end, because it's just going to cook and cook and cook and cook and cook. Sprinkle this over the top. All right, now you can use a whole onion if you want. I'm just going to use a half an onion, because remember, we've got to put some braising liquid in there, okay? I'm going to take some baby carrots. Now you can use regular carrots. I'm using baby carrots just because it's easier. Put some of these in the pan. This is going to add lovely flavor. And you can use these as your roasted vegetable later on too. If you're going to use regular big old carrots, just cut them into larger chunks, okay? In addition to that, I'm going to be using some new potatoes. New potatoes are the small ones with the very thin skins, and I'm going to just put them in here whole because they will roast the whole time through, and when you're done, you'll have these lovely little tiny new potatoes you can put on your plate. And I like combining the colors of the skin. If you liked all reds, you would like whites. If you like blues, use the blue ones too. But just a few in here, a few for everybody that's going to have some. Something else you can do, shallots and garlic. Shallots, they're wonderful, wonderful, wonderful sweet onions. They're usually smallish like this. I would just cut them in half and lay them in here and let them braise. And they're going to impart a beautiful, beautiful oniony sweetness to this dish. Just a beautiful dish. And you take these shallots and you put them on your plate. And they're just yummy, scrumptious, delicious. Now, everybody has heard rosemary, garlic, lamb goes great. It absolutely does. So I'm going to take some rosemary, fresh rosemary. I'm going to sprinkle it over the top. All right? I'm going to take some fresh thyme leaves. I'm going to put some fresh thyme leaves in here. Just drop it in because the leaves will fall off the stalks. You can always pull your stalks off later. I'm going to take some lavender. Lavender, people say, oh, lavender, what in the world are you using lavender for? If you were to use a herb mixture called herbes de Provence, herbes de Provence has a wonderful combination of herbs and lavender in it. You can actually see the lavender buds in the herbes de Provence. And it's really, really wonderful. It's got marjoram and all kinds of really great things. And I like to say, when you're talking about lavender, think about using lavender the same as you would mint and the same as you would with rosemary. It's got that same pungency. It's just a wonderful, wonderful flavor. You want to add a couple of bay leaves. I'm burying my lamb shanks in here. I'm going to add some garlic. Now, whole garlic. I'm going to take it and I'm going to crush it with my hand till you hear it crack. And then it's all going to fall apart, okay? And then you're going to take each of these little cloves. Actually, these look like big cloves. And you're going to get a little tube like this. If you don't have one, I'd get off your chair right now, run down to the store and buy one. It's just a little silicone tube, but this stuff will take this paper off this garlic in a heartbeat. Sometimes I find it really cumbersome to have to sit there and try to peel the paper off the garlic. But you just put it inside the tube and you roll it until you hear a snip, snip. And you hear that paper crack off, and look at that. You got a beautiful clove of garlic already peeled. We're going to put a bunch of those just like that into this dish, because after roasting in lamb juice for about 2 hours, these things are wonderful. I've already got some done over here, so I'm going to put, and I'm generous with my garlic, haha. Garlic and lamb is one of those classic combinations. It's just amazing. Okay, so now we know we have some herbs, some garlic, some potatoes, some onions, some celery, some carrots. And what else are we going to add to this? We're going to add beef stock. You can use chicken stock if that's what you had, but we're going to take some beef stock and we're going to fill this pan up halfway to 2/3 of the way so that we have some braising liquid. In a pan like this, one of these containers is about 1/4 liquid will work just fine. You can use water if you wanted to, but I always like using a liquid that has a little bit more flavor than just plain water, simply because you're going to take this juice out later on and make that into your sauce, okay? We're ready to put our lamb shanks in the oven, but there's one more thing we want to add. Whenever you're cooking a very tough piece of meat like this, to get it tender, you need to add an acid quality. Your wine is one acid quality, but something else that adds a tremendous dimension of flavor to this is some tomato product. Now you can use marinara sauce, you can use diced tomatoes, you can use fresh tomatoes, but all you're going to do with this is sprinkle some of this over the top, and as it cooks, those tomatoes are going to break down and they're going to add a beautiful acid quality to the sauce that is going to help break down the tough parts of the meat so they come out nice and juicy and tender, okay? The acid is very, very important to have that happen. So once we're done with that, we're going to cover it with a piece of parchment paper because we do not want the tin foil we're going to put on this to come in contact with that acid, because otherwise it'll eat holes in the tin foil, and the tin foil is what's going to actually keep our moisture in our pot, okay? So a nice big piece of tin foil. Make sure you can get it covered nice and tight all the way around. If you don't have enough tin foil to get it around the edges nice and tight, use 2 pieces, okay? So now we're ready to go in a 350-degree oven, and like I said, forget about it for at least 2 hours. If you've got big lamb shanks, forget about it for 3 hours. So plan ahead, but this is a great meal. All right, into the oven you go. So I have a quick tip for you. Do you know how to roast garlic? I'm going to show you 2 ways right now on how to roast garlic. One of them, you're going to get 2 products out of them, and that's what I'm going to show you. We're going to choose garlic that's all nice and together, that's nice and firm. You don't want things that are falling apart like this, okay? So we're going to take the garlic, we're going to cut approximately the top 1/3 off, all right? So just a straight, clean shot. So now you've got all of the cloves of garlic inside of this exposed, and that's what you want to do. So you're going to take a little bit of salt and put a little bit of salt on there, not a lot. You can drop this in here too if you want to. When you do the larger pieces of garlic like this, cut them like this, you're going to find larger cloves, you're going to find larger bits. You can just drop those in here too because it all roasts the same and it's beautiful. So we're going to take these, we're going to cut them like this, and we're going to load them up in this pan, just like this. And then we're going to make sure there's salt on everything, and then we're going to cover it with oil. All right, cover it with oil. So that's why you're using a deep pan. So you're going to pour oil over it, make sure you get oil on the insides of the garlic. So now this is what it's going to look like, okay? So right now we're going to take it, we're going to cover it with a piece of tin foil. We're going to put it in the oven. 350 degrees is just fine. About a half an hour, all right? In a half an hour, you're going to pull that out, and the little cloves of garlic are going to be popping up out of the skins, and that's when you know it's going to be done. You're going to take that, you're going to let it cool, you're going to separate those cloves of garlic out, and then you're going to have 2 products. You're going to have wonderful roasted garlic, and the other one you're going to have garlic flavored oil. So you're going to save that oil for salad dressings, for stir fries, for sauteing, whatever it is you use oil for, because it has got a wonderful garlic flavor to it. Now here's another way. If you didn't have oil, didn't want to use oil, take your garlic cloves. Once again, you could cut them. I like cutting them because then it exposes all of the tops of the garlic to the heat, just like this. Take a little bit of salt and close this up inside a tin foil. Put this in the oven about 30 minutes once again, pull it out, and then you'll have roasted garlic. And all you need to do when they're done is just take these little cloves and squeeze them like toothpaste, and they come out, and use them any way you want. 2 ways to make roasted garlic, dry way and the oil way, whichever one you prefer. so now, this comes out of the oven. Be careful because it's hot. I'm going to open it up, and you're going to take your paper off the top. Woohoo! And look at those lamb shanks all in there. Look at how nicely they cooked. They have got look at that, how they all baked down. Now, I want to show you something about what we mean by fork tender, okay? This is how you're going to tell whether your lamb shanks are done or not, and whether they're done enough. And a couple of things you want to look at here that's going to give you some clues that your lamb shanks are done. Number one, the bone is really, really exposed, okay? All of that meat comes pulling off the bone, and the marrow cooks out. Oh, God. This is just like wonderful. And so this is how you tell when it's done. Get my plate because I don't want to drip and lose any of this stuff. Oh, look at that. You can tell just by picking that up that it's going to fall off the bone. This is how you can give it a quick little test. Take your fork and pull it and see how that meat just comes right off. You're going to get these beautiful little muscles coming. Look at that. And that is, if your meat's not pulling off the bone like this, it's not done. Put it back in the oven until it is so tender like this. If you've never had one of these, oh my gosh, you're just going to be in seventh heaven because it is so, so good. So what we're going to do is we will take all of these lamb shanks out of here and we'll put them on a side plate. And be very careful when you're doing this. Number one, you're dealing with something that's really hot. You're dealing with the liquid that's hot, the pan that's hot, and the shanks that are hot. And you don't just want to come in here and just start grabbing at the shanks because they'll start falling apart on you. And you want to keep them as whole as you possibly can so that when you serve them, you're going to have a presentation that, see what I mean? This bone just came right out. And that's not what you want to serve. Okay, you want to make sure that you can get all of that lovely meat. This is so tender. You want to make sure you get all of that lovely meat. I'm just going to put this right here for right now. Okay, so the next thing you're going to do, I'm going to move this out of my way right now while I make the sauce. You need to let them rest a little bit before you serve them anyway. So next I'm going to get a bowl, get a nice big deep bowl, get a nice strainer that's nice and thin so that you get all the debris out. You're going to pour this into your strainer and separate your vegetables and your meat. This is one that I did a little bit earlier so you could see what I'm doing here. You want to take this and you're going to add a little bit of what we call a Burmese to the sauce. We just pour that right in there. And all a Burmese is a little bit of butter and a little bit of flour, soft butter and a flour mixed together so it's kind of pasty-like. You see how it's kind of pasty-like? We're not cooking this, so it's not a roux. It's called a Burmese because it's raw butter and flour. Put it in your pot, and you're going to whisk it up. You're going to want to simmer this for about 10-15 minutes to cook that raw flour out, okay? So just let that simmer there for a minute. You're going to bring this up to a boil, and then you're going to let it simmer for about 15 to 20 minutes until it's done. Now, if you really wanted to add some wonderful flavor to this, you know, everybody says, I want some mint jelly with my lamb. Don't necessarily want mint jelly, but what they're looking for is something that cuts that gamey flavor that lamb is so notorious for having. Personally, I love it. I love a strong goat cheese. I love the strong flavor of lamb. I think it's marvelous. I think it's just a culinary delight. But some people find it a little bit strong and they need to cut that flavor with something. And so this is where mint comes in. Mint is one of these herbs that has that quality to be able to add a little bit of freshness to anything. And so we're going to add a little bit of mint to our sauce. Just drop it in. We're not going to chiffonade or cut it up or anything. While it's simmering for that 10 to 20 minutes to cook the flour out of it, all we're going to do when that is done is take this and strain this through the strainer again. And what this is going to do is it's going to infuse that flavor into that sauce. You could also use rosemary if you wanted to use rosemary. You could add some rosemary, same thing, just put it right on in there. And so that it has a tendency to infuse the flavor without having to have the chunks in there, okay? And just let it simmer. That's it. That's all you have to do. Now I'm going to strain it out once again into a bowl. And I'm just going to take this If you guys notice, I use towels on my handles. Handles get hot. Use towels. And I'm going to pour this in to get my sauce. Strain all those other liquids out. Strain all the solids. Get it nice and smooth. Straining your sauce before you serve it is one of those tricks that the professionals do that you can do at home that's going to make a difference between a lumpy sauce and a smooth sauce, okay? Now, at the very end of this, what you do is take a little bit of fresh butter, and we're going to add a little bit of fresh butter to this. Not a lot, just a little bit, maybe about a tablespoon. And what that butter is going to do is it's going to add a nice finishing quality to that sauce. Okay, whisk it in, and now our sauce is ready. Okay, so now we're ready to plate up. We're going to take our vegetables that we've separated out. We got them separated a little bit here. We're also going to add a few green peas to our plate because green peas are pretty and they're going to add a nice little pop of color. So what I'm going to do is, I got some mashed potatoes here that I've cooked already. I didn't feel like I needed to teach you how to make mashed potatoes today, but I kept them on the range, kept them nice and hot. So I'm going to take a spoonful of these mashed potatoes and put them on my plate. These have chives and sour cream in them. Yum, yum, yum. I'm going to take a few of my vegetables with my tongs. I'm going to put some of my potatoes around side. Put some of my carrots around here. These carrots are, I mean, don't think of these vegetables as something you've got to throw away because these, even though they're roasted in with all the sauce, you separate them out later and they're so tender and good and juicy and just so full of goodness. You're going to love it. Get a tomato because the tomatoes are there too. If you use whole tomatoes in here, you can. And woohoo, here's a piece of garlic. Don't forget the garlic. Oh my gosh, the garlic. You know, the garlic when it comes out, it's all nice and tender, just like potato soft, you know? And you put it in your mouth and you go, wow, what is that flavor? It's garlic, but it's so tender and fresh and just so soft. It's not what you think. It's not like biting into a big old clove of hot garlic. It's really quite wonderful. I'm going to choose one of my shanks, this one right here. Put it on the plate. I'm going to put a little bit of my sauce on the plate. You can pour it over the meat if you like. But the thing about pouring sauce over the meat, if your sauce is going to coat it and cover it up, put it underneath because you want people to be able to see what's on your plate here, okay? I always like to add a little pop of green to a plate like this because it makes it look fresh. And it doesn't have to be anything a whole lot like an entire serving, but just a little pop. And if you wanted to put a little pop of parsley on here, you certainly could as well. But not a lot, just a little, just to add a little punch of color. Because it makes a nice difference between having a dull plate and a plate that pops with color. So here you go. Almost like a caveman meal. We have our braised lamb shank with a nice little sauce on the side and our braised vegetables. I hope you try this recipe at home because it's really, the time is in the oven. You brown your stuff, make a nice little dish, pop it in the oven, let it cook for a long time, and your house is going to smell simply amazing when you do this. Thank you for watching this episode of Charlotte Cooks. I'm really glad you're here with me today. I really hope you try the recipe because it really is really super delicious. You can get our recipes on our website, pbscharlotte.org, or you can email me at Pamela, Pamela, .roberts, ROBERTS, @cpcc.edu. I love to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time on Charlotte Cooks.
A production of PBS Charlotte.